Which is better, the Samsung Galaxy A41 or the Samsung Galaxy A31? Well, in this video, we're going to find out. Hi everyone, this is Kevin here, coming at you with my comparison between the Samsung Galaxy A41 versus the Samsung Galaxy A31. Now, I'd like to start off and mention that the A41 is actually pretty difficult to purchase if you are located in the US. And that's because there's really nowhere to buy it. On eBay, for example, the only listings are located in Italy, which can be a bit complicated when ordering. I suppose not impossible, but certainly a bit more difficult than usual. And then the phone actually isn't even on Amazon at all. Now, that could change in the future, but as of now, that is the current situation, so we'll have to see. But the A31 is very widely available at a variety of different places. I will be leaving a link in the video description if you want to check it out there. But this phone is certainly easy to buy if you are in the US. I know that I have an audience that's located all around the world, so let me know if you can find the A41 in your home country. Now, with the Samsung Galaxy A41, we're getting a 6.1-inch display compared to a larger 6.4-inch display with the Samsung Galaxy A31. Now, there's some differences even beyond the displays here. You can see that with the A41, the bottom bezel is a lot smaller compared to the A31. And in general, the A31 just has a bigger body and frame compared to the A41. Now, the A41 is actually a bit smaller than many of the other new A-series phones that have come out this year. And while I am someone that does prefer larger displays because I do a lot of content consumption on my phone, I actually kind of think it's nice that the A41 is a bit smaller compared to its various other A-series rivals. It kind of makes the phone a bit more unique compared to those other options, and I know that there are a lot of people out there that do like having a device that is a bit more compact and easier to hold in one hand and easier to put in your pocket. So if that criteria there appeals to you, that's something that you're looking for in a smartphone, then you might want to consider going for the A41. Yes, it's a smaller display, but you are getting a smaller body overall. Now, both phones feature Super AMOLED displays at 1080p. With the Galaxy A41, we're getting a 431 ppi compared to a 411 ppi with the Galaxy A31. Now, both phones do feature a 20:9 aspect ratio, so a more narrow and tall form factor, which is certainly the way that many other mobile devices are going. And with the A41, we're getting an 85.9% screen-to-body ratio, compared to a screen-to-body ratio of 84.9% with the A31. So a bit better here with the A41, which I would expect due to it having the smaller bottom bezel. Now, both devices do feature water drop notches, which when I first heard about that being on these phones, I was a bit surprised. I thought water drop notches were something that Samsung was mostly leaving behind in 2019, but apparently they decided to give us that with these two phones. Now, in general, I don't see it as a deal breaker, especially because I'm certainly a big fan of how good these AMOLED displays look in general. So I am willing to overlook having the notches at the top, but I'm really curious to know your thoughts about it. Is this a deal breaker, or can you live with it? Now, the good news, though, is that we are getting very good front-facing cameras with both phones. So with the Galaxy A41, we're getting a 25 megapixel front-facing camera, and then we're getting a 20 megapixel front-facing camera with the A31. So a bit better there with the A41, but for my usage of both phones, they both do have the ability to take nice, good-looking selfies. Now, with the A41, we're getting 64 gigabytes of internal storage, and with the A31, we're getting double that at 128 gigabytes. So it is nice that we are getting twice the amount of internal storage with the A31. Now, both phones do support microSD card expansion, but still, nothing's better than just having a lot of built-in storage, that's for sure. So I definitely give the A31 a lot of credit for giving us that much storage. Now, neither of these two phones have wireless charging, but they both actually feature in-display fingerprint sensors, and they both have face unlock. So we'll try out the in-display fingerprint sensors right now. Decently quick there with the A41. We'll do the A31 now. and decently quick as well. Now it does seem like with the A31, the fingerprint sensor is a little bit lower compared to the A41, kind of an interesting difference there that I just noticed. But to be honest, in general, just having in-display fingerprint sensors with phones in this price range is a really nice and cool and unique thing to see. Now taking a look at the back side of both phones, and we will do a full hardware tour a little bit later, but we do have the camera modules. Now both phones feature a 48 megapixel main camera. They both have an 8 megapixel ultra wide angle camera, and they both have a 5 megapixel depth sensing camera. However, with the A31, we do get an additional camera, which is a 5 megapixel macro. Now, I've mentioned this in many other videos in the past, and I know that other content creators like MKBHD, he's addressed the shortcomings of the macro cameras as well. But typically, whether it's with Samsung or Xiaomi or whatever company gives you a macro camera, you can typically take just as good of a close-up photo with the main camera. So the macro camera, in my opinion, is a little bit of a gimmick, so I don't really mind that we're not getting it here with the A41. So that is something that you might want to consider. Now let me know in the comment section below if you feel like having a macro camera is a must-have feature, and if it's a deal breaker with a phone that doesn't have one. Now here's how things look with the cameras on both phones. It does seem like, at least from the default settings, the white balance is a little bit brighter here with the A41, but I think things look very good with both phones through the viewfinders. Now here's how things look with the ultra wide angle cameras on both phones. They both fit a lot more content into the frame, so in general, I'm a big fan of having that feature. I know that pretty much at this point, almost every phone, at least for Android, seems to be giving us ultra wide angle cameras. Actually, I suppose pretty much every recent iPhone has one as well, minus the SE. I know that the Pixel 4a, which I'm a big fan of by the way, does not have an ultra wide camera, but it is a feature that I do like to have when it is available. So I appreciate that both phones do have an ultra wide. Now we are getting portrait mode with both phones, which is nice as well, something that I would expect. Now both devices feature 4 gigabytes of RAM and the MediaTek Helio P65. As far as performance goes, it seems to be pretty much identical with both phones. I've had an easy time with both of them, browsing the web, navigating around the OS, doing calls, sending text messages. Pretty much everything works well. I mean, we're not getting flagship speeds with either phone, of course, and they're not supposed to be flagships, but for what they are, kind of a lower mid-range device, I feel like they're completely fine as far as performance goes, so no complaints. Now, video recording with both phones does max out at 1080p, so no 4K video, unfortunately. And then the battery capacities of these phones are actually a bit different. Now, they both do support 15-watt fast charging, which I do appreciate, but with the A41, we're getting a 3,500 milliamp hour internal battery, which typically I would consider to be pretty impressive. But with the A31, we're getting a really big 5,000 milliamp hour internal battery. So a much bigger battery here with the A31. And it really does pay off, as this phone will last for a very long time. So that's very impressive here with the A31, and I think that's something that a lot of people seem to overlook. You don't see too many phones with a battery this big. Now you're getting pretty much the same exact software experience on both phones, Samsung's One UI 2.0, so that's exactly the same. But now that we've gone over the specifications of these two devices, let's take a closer look at the hardware. Now I already talked quite a bit about the front panels here. We are getting the notches at the top, and then a little bit of a thicker bottom bezel with the A31. Now both phones are completely made out of plastic, so keep that in mind. But taking a look at the left side here with both phones, we're getting the slot for the microSD card and SIM card. Then on the right side of both phones, we're getting the power button and volume button. Then up top, they both have the noise canceling microphone. And then on the bottom, they both have the 3.5mm headphone jack, USB-C port for charging and data transfer, microphone, and speaker. And then taking a look at the back of the phones, very similar as well, but we are getting a triple camera setup with the A41 compared to a quad camera setup with the A31. But in general, I think these phones do look really nice. They're very minimalist, and I think they're just both stylish phones that actually do look a bit more expensive than they really are. Let's now do a speed test comparison between these two phones. So I did clear out everything in the recent apps, but let's go to the camera apps first. So 1, 2, 3, go. Looks like about the same with both phones, which is good. Let's now go to Google Chrome. 1, 2, 3, go. Pretty much exactly the same again. Let's go to yahoo.com. 1, 2, 3, go. Seems a little bit quicker there with the A31, but really not too much different. Let's now go to engadget.com. 1, 2, 3, go. Looks like in this test, the A41 was a little bit quicker at pulling up Engadget. And you can see in this side-by-side here that with the A31, we can indeed fit at least a little bit more content into the frame, but it's really not too much different. I mean, everything is a little bit smaller with the A41 since the display itself is smaller in general, but it looks like you're getting a good content viewing experience on both phones. Now, scrolling on both, it's pretty decent, about as good as you'd expect it to be, considering the specifications of the phones. Let's now go to this article. 1, 2, 3, go. A little bit quicker with the A31, but in general, both phones are, again, pretty close when it comes to performance. Pinch to zoom, very good. So in general, both devices are very decent mid-range, like lower mid-range handsets. But in conclusion, which phone do I prefer? Now, I like the A41 a lot. Seriously, it's a good phone. But I feel like the A31 has enough other things going for it that I would prefer it. For example, I like that we're getting double the amount of storage at 128 gigabytes with the A31. And also I like that we're getting a really massive, beefy 5,000 milliamp hour internal battery with the A31 as well. So really, I feel like there's nothing about the A41 that makes it better than the A31, except maybe having the macro camera could kind of be considered a benefit. But yeah, in general, I feel like the A31 is the better phone. It gives you better specifications. I mean, the two phones are very close in specs anyway, but the A31 is the way to go. But I hope you enjoyed this comparison between the Samsung Galaxy A41 and the Samsung Galaxy A31. Let me know in the comment section below if you have any questions, but this is Kevin here. Give the video a thumbs up, and I will see you in the next one.